Hi, I'm Kathleen Bade, and we are interviewing superintendents from across the country. And this is the interview I was most looking forward to because Dr. Curtis Finch is with Deer Valley Unified High School, or excuse me, Deer Valley Unified School District. And I am a product of Deer Valley High School. So I am proof positive that you can get a job after going through
It's
the
true.
school system
It's
in
the
Deer
only
Valley.
reason I'm sitting here, because I knew you were a Deer Valley graduate.
Well, thank you for being here, Dr. Finch. Well, tell us a little bit. I know how much the area of Northwest Phoenix has grown, which is where Deer Valley High School is, but share with everybody how it's exploded in growth and how many people you serve.
We currently serve about 35,000 students, 4,000 employees, 42 schools. What's unique about our zone is it has aged out over the years, and then we have exponential growth in the north. So as you know, TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, put down their plant right in the middle of my district. We go all the way from New River down to Bell, and it's right in the geographical center, which is $40 billion of chip manufacturing. It's Intel's bigger brother, and as you know, in Arizona, that had a huge impact on Chandler, Gilbert, Queen Creek, that area down there. The exact same thing is going to happen in our zone. We talk to the state monthly, and they tell us 16,000 more homes are coming on the west side of the freeway in the next decade. So another Anthem, as you know, as a northern establishment, is going to pop up right across the freeway there. And that's going to have a major impact on Deer Valley and its continued growth. I predict 20 years from now, Deer Valley will be the largest school district in Arizona.
And right now you're fourth. So how are you preparing for this influx of students?
Well, as being an Arizona person, you would know this as well. It's highly political today. And so we lost our bond and override for the first time in 30 years last year. We're going to go again in November, but our bonds and our overrides are what provide the extra funds to build those schools. So we need to continue to educate our community on the importance of our explosive growth. And obviously, we hope we're going to win this next lap, but it's made my job more difficult to convince the people that are moving into our zone that there is going to be growth. Because right now, they just have a factory in the middle of the sand, and there's no housing going around it yet, but it's all coming. So I'm just trying to get in front of it. So that's what I've done, my part, to try to convince the public that, hey, this is coming, ready or not.
And how are you doing that? Are you going to listening sessions? Are you talking to state legislatures? What are you doing?
All the above. I'm big in social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, or X, I guess his name's now. I do podcasting. Our websites are very active. So we also, as you mentioned, do listening sessions. I do a thing called Conversations with Kurt, and that's where community members can come in. I also do it online, so you can send me the questions beforehand. I can do the whole spiel, and you can watch it later for those active parents. So we use different forms to get the message out.
So a superintendent on social media, so you're really embracing that platform for your position.
I joined X back in the old days when it was Twitter at the very beginning, not really knowing what I was doing. And I was a superintendent in Michigan for 18 years. This is my 7th year here in Arizona as a superintendent. But what was good about it is what I realized, as you know, Deer Valley is very large, 362 square miles. And what I was finding out is that my northern schools didn't know what was happening even in our southern schools. It wasn't a family. And so I really went after the culture side of tying the whole machine together. I tried to get to 500 classrooms a year, every year, and I have. And so every time I go, I'm telling a story about a kid, a teacher, some award you won. And what it has done is pulled the district together. And now we are all working together on the same voice of what we're trying to do. Culture eats everything else for breakfast. And so if you can have great culture, people want to work there, people want to serve, and they find purpose. I don't know if you know this, Deer Valley won the Forbes Best Mid-Size Employer for the nation 2 years in a row. And I think it's because of this constant drumbeat of positive things that we're doing in the district.
Start pounding the drum a little bit. What are some of the things that you've accomplished that you're most proud of?
Well, when I was a new superintendent back in the day, I really worked on making sure everybody was like me, reproducing myself. And what I found was my my innovation was slower. There was less mistakes, but as I grew and matured as a superintendent, I quickly realized that leadership matters, and that we need to grow our own leaders within inside the machine and not put boundaries on their personalities, on their thinking. And so what happened is, it's kind of like me being the bumpers on a bowling alley. I used to make them all bowl like me. Now I don't. I just give them the general philosophy of what we're doing, hire the best people, make sure in the best places where they're supposed to be, because I believe principals are the key to a successful district. So now we grow our own administrators. And since then, our scores academically have been off the charts. We had the most A schools this year that we've had in our history. We continue to athletics, fine arts, everything. All of our programs are all accelerating now. And I believe it's because we're hiring the right people. It's a good to great concept. Put them on the right seat of the bus and then turn them loose and get out of their way.
Why do you think principals are key?
The reason, a couple, well, I started out as a regular superintendent way 18 years ago. Then I became an ISD superintendent, which they don't have these here. They're kind of like BOZAs or RISAs. Texas has them. They're kind of regional superintendents. So I was that for 12 years. And as I went and started working with 6 local school districts, what I found out was that most of their problems are coming from weak administrators. So that's when we started developing leadership programs. And then when I came to Arizona, I just put it on steroids. And they are the ones who own the culture, they own the temperature, they own the building. And it's a lot like a coach of a team. If you have a great coach, you will do anything for that coach. And so if they work on the culture side of it, they'll want to work, they find purpose, and they stick around. And so a good principal is the key to your system.
And when you talk about a program to sort of nurture and foster the next principal in the pipeline for you, what does that entail exactly?
Well, now that the machine is rolling, now what it looks like is we have a 2-year program that everyone goes through that wants to be a future administrator. But what happens is the principals of today are looking for the leaders for tomorrow in their staff. And so if there's a teacher that's showing certain skills, certain concepts that might work as a leader, then we put them in leadership positions on their campus. And then we recommend them for this academy. They go through the academy, and 9 times out of 10, they do a good job as the next administrators. So it works out well.
You've been in this position as a superintendent in various states. Now you're 7 years in Arizona. What do you recommend to other superintendents who might be new to the job? What lessons did you learn that you would like to impart from them that maybe they can skip some of the bumps that you hit along the road?
Well, I think the bumps actually teach you a lot about yourself and about what you should or shouldn't do. But I think what I do is I tell the newer superintendents that are coming up, it's a little saying, if others wish to speak ill of you, live so no one believes them. So how you behave yourself sets the example for your staff. And so, yes, you need to watch what you're putting on social media, watch where you're at. A superintendent is on the board 24/7, 365. So live with a high integrity, high character. And then when you know you've done your job, when somebody says, I heard Dr. Finch did this, and their answer is, that doesn't sound like him, then you know you've done your job.
Interesting. Well, tell me about inside the classroom. Teachers have a lot of challenges these days coming out of the pandemic. Literacy went down, math skills went down. How are you helping them address all of those issues?
So we work really hard finding the student right away. We have a system called professional learning communities, PLCs, and we're a model. There's only 11 in the United States. We're one of the 11 as a model PLC district, K-12. And really the whole point of PLCs is to put teachers in groups to drill down to each individual student. So we have data systems, testing systems. We do mid-district testing throughout the district. And all these different systems, we have intervention systems as well, are designed to bring the kid back to the curve as quick as possible. Because we know reading is the secret to school, period. If you can get a kid on step by third grade, they will exponentially be fine. The reverse is also true. If they're not ready by third grade, they get exponentially behind. So as you're working in the system, if you can pull them back to the grid as quick as possible, then you spend less resources on getting that kid caught up. The sooner, the better is the secret.
All right. And the other part of the pandemic were those relief funds that are expiring. How are you addressing the lack of those funds?
Yeah, that is a problem. But we had a philosophy at the beginning of to not put too many dollars into people because we knew the money was going to be running out. So we did a lot of our dollars into interventions, into software systems, data management systems, things that the teachers can use. We actually even developed our own curriculum, for example, and now we have an online school. So while everybody else was adopting the Florida University and all these other ones that were not aligned to the state standards, I spent money on doing an actual curriculum that we could use continuously in our system. So we use it today. And now we have an online school called Aspire, K-12, ranked #1 in the state for academic performance. And I believe that was the key. And if you're a student that's behind in a regular classroom, the teacher can get back to that lesson and give you that standard. So interventions are the key. Interventions are the key. And they're the key during COVID and they're a key after.
Well, you yourself, as superintendent, have certainly, as we mentioned before, embraced technology in the form of social media and the outreach that comes with that. Talk about technology, though, in general. Now, here comes artificial intelligence. How are you going to utilize that within the education system and also get teachers to embrace it as well?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's not if it's coming, it's when and at what pace. So now we are, I argue, we're one of the leaders in our state. We actually bring teachers and school districts together and setting up those systems. And our general philosophy is we're not going to ban it, but we're going to use it as a tool to help kids, use it as a tool to help teachers. So what I'm sure the public is afraid of, or maybe even the common teacher is afraid of, is that I'm going to be replaced. Well, that is not true, because the secret to education is relationships. Just like coaching, a teacher is a coach in a classroom of 30 kids. And if they can connect with those kids will do anything for them. And so they'll perform, they'll go the extra mile. And artificial intelligence, whether it's a hologram that's going to be teaching you, you will not have a relationship with that image. And so the secret with working with AI is using it to help the student build the relationship with the teacher and help them go further. So I know when you're 25 looking for a job at a TV show or a TV anchor job, they're not going to ask you, they're going to ask you what you think about A, B, or C. They're not going to say, if I can look it up, I don't need it. And so I don't need you. Well, why do they need the human? The human brings all that information together and develops their own philosophy, their own position. That's the difference between AI and the human. We're walking AI. Obviously, today we're faster than those computers. Who knows? Maybe Terminator 6, we will not be as fast as they are, but I still think it's relationships. So we're doing more phasing too with the AI. I don't know if this will make sense, but in the writing process, for example, you can write me a paper about Arizona State history, and it'll type it up for you. But what we're doing is doing it as it goes along. We start collecting the work of the students as they go, and then the teacher can watch the development over time. A little trickier than just popping out a paper at a click of a button.
So do you have to work with teachers in the classroom to educate them on what to look for to make sure it really is the student writing and not AI?
Actually, and it's happening today, they actually have AI that can watch AI, if that makes sense. So you can submit a student's paper, and it'll tell you, oh, this wasn't written by Johnny. This is written by a robot. So they actually have that today. But again, I'll go back to the why we're here. The purpose is to help the student grow. And so if you have the relationship as you go along, then you can, right away, Johnny, you didn't write this. And you can have that conversation that, hey, are you here for the A or are you here for the learning? And you need to obviously convince the student we're here for the learning.
And it sounds like students, through some of the superintendents that I've talked to, one of the big challenges is that because students have everything in the palm of their hand on a smartphone, that a part of the education is teaching kids that you still need to use this and not just this.
Exactly. And again, I will listen to that advice if I know you. If I don't know you, I'm not listening. It's because I know if we have a relationship, that teacher can say, I see you at 10 years from now doing X, Y, or Z. But, and I think you should do this with you. That happened to me. It probably happened to you. Mrs. Foster, 50 years ago, 40 years ago said, I can see you being a leader someday. You need to blank, whatever, fill in the blank. And that, because there was a relationship. She saw something in me. And that's what teachers do. So when they see the student taking the wrong path, then they can talk to them about what the right path is and the why. Without the why, the students won't do it.
How do you foster that personal touch when you have the fourth largest school district? How do you keep it personal?
Well, as I mentioned before, I try to get to 500 classrooms. I usually hit 600 a year. So this is my 7th year, so that's 4,200 classrooms that I've been. Some of them multiple times, some of them only once, some of them I haven't even been to, or maybe a new teacher came in. But when I see teaching happening in real time, then I know what's actually happening in my district. And happens all the time. If I go into like a 3rd grade wing and I'll go down the hall and I can see math is being taught pretty similar, but with different styles, but the same concepts. So we're looking for a guaranteed and viable curriculum. That's our little slogan. That means it is consistent to the state standards and to Deer Valley standards. And so we have little monitoring systems inside the machine, and our results speak for themselves.
And speaking of results, how is it going in terms of getting kids college ready? You mentioned making sure that they're taking the classes they need. What else are you doing?
I think part of it, again, I'll go back to the relationships. It is really about connecting with the kid and speaking into them. So I mentioned in Michigan, I ran an ISD where I was the career center, the local career center, and all 6 school districts sent their kids to me, their juniors and seniors. And we ran the career centers in Deer Valley. We're big enough where we can run our own. The plus of a monster district like ours is we can offer all those opportunities for kids. We have, for example, we have a restaurant called Avenue 27, which is run by the students. They order the food, they cook it, they serve it. It looks like a Joe restaurant. It's attached to Barry Goldwater High School.
You're kidding.
No, it's cool. I ran one of those in Michigan, so I brought that concept here. We just kind of put it on steroids. Rather than just a culinary program, what if you actually could be running a restaurant? Plains.
That's amazing.
Yep.
What are some of the partnerships that you have to give students those kinds of hands-on learning experiences?
I'm a big believer in relationships with industry. On one of our business partner meetings, we invite on all the local businesses that want to come. We have there was over 100 different businesses there. And it's really, trying to connect with them and seeing that a lot of these businesses are just worried about making money. They're worried about widgets. How many can I produce? What I'm trying to convince them is, no, that's important. Yeah, you have to pay the bills, turn the lights on. But what about the next generation? How are you going to get your workforce? So if they invest in speaking into these kids on STEM days or STEAM days, they come to our classrooms and talk about, hey, this is what my job looks like. This is what I do. You can even have an internship, come and work in my company. And that actually drives the student to that industry. If you're not telling the story, somebody else is telling it. It's probably Instagram that's telling this kid what to do with their lives rather than you. So as a business owner, business leader, you need to be speaking into these kids, providing opportunities.
You've testified in front of national committees about improving public education. What's your pitch to them?
There's a 45-minute version, but the 40-second version is basically that education is the glue to our democracy. That's my main spiel, and I kind of go off of that because that's the great equalizer from a kid who's in a title school all the way to the kid who's in the rich suburbia school. And that's the one thing that ties all of us together as Americans is that public education, common language. And as you're seeing today, much of that is under fire. We are actually moving back to our segregated days in the 1950s, where people are pulling kids out of public schools and putting them in the group of kids that look like their kids. They may be in a private school where they've never seen a special needs kid, never seen a wheelchair, never worked sat beside a kid that was struggling. And so that's the speech that I kind of go with them is that how we have to make sure that we don't continue to segregate our society under the disguise of school choice. The trick is it's not school choice, it's the school's choice whether they take your kid or not. Public school, we take every kid. They don't. So that's the difference. That's why I tell them, you can have those choice programs if you want, but we shouldn't be subsidizing that. If the parent has the dollars to do that, great. I'm not going to hold it against them. But if they're taking taxpayer dollars, they need to be accountable like I am. And as you know, Arizona is the tip of the spear on this mess. And we are a poster child of how not to do it. And I was in Michigan. They were following Florida. It seems like everywhere I go, this is popular because it's a national trend. And so what they're selling is not what is actually happening. So that's the spiel I give them.
Because parents do have so many choices, what is the big selling point in your view about being a publicly educated student?
Well, I try to go back to how we make a difference in the student's life. If you're a Deer Valley graduate, for example, you say you went to a bunch of different schools in your life that were all tied into the same system. The thing about a public school is it's the community school, especially if you go rural America anywhere. We used to shut down the town when the Friday football game was on. If you're having all these kids going to academies and going to basketball academies, hockey academies, volleyball academies, that community thing is gone. And so in Deer Valley is a good example of that. I'm one of the most chartered school districts in all of Arizona. I have 42 schools. I have 42 charters and privates in my system. So they sold it as a way to get this choice thing, to get out of these terrible schools. I'm arguably the #1 school district in all of Arizona. Why do I have all these charters? It's money. They can make money off it. As soon as the money's gone, they'll be gone. So it's community. That's the trump card. Community is the trump card that I offer that they don't offer. Because now you grow up 13 years with your buddies. That's what I did. And there's some of my best buddies today.
When you look ahead to 2024 and education, what's your outlook?
I always believe in the human spirit, and I always believe in purpose. If I can get those two things together, where a teacher, a bus driver, the lunch lady, the custodian, the person that flips the stop sign, if I can get them to believe that we are doing something greater, that can make a difference in that we're shaping the future, they'll stay with Deer Valley, and they have. We have great retention rates. We won the Forbes Award 2 years in a row now. People are coming now to knock on our door and trying to get the secret sauce that we have. But it's really hiring the best people, get out of their way, empower them, help them to make them feel like they're a part of the solution, they're a contributing person, part of the machine. Then they'll stay, then they'll make a difference.
How do you make them feel a part of it?
It's the relationships. Again, I'm visible. I go out. In my job, you can stare at spreadsheets all day if you want, but you will lose touch of what's happening. So I go to all the events, as many as I can, fine arts, sports, and then obviously I visit the classrooms. I try to speak into my principals as much as I can, but it's connections. It's all about connections.
And is that your recommendations or best advice to other superintendents?
For sure. I started in a small school district back in Reese, Michigan, like 1,500 kids. And that's when I just started learning about how much relationships meant to the machine. And so over time, I realized that the more time that I spend and pay it forward in the classroom, on the field, on the court, at the production, shaking hands, saying hi, telling them good job, they remember that forever. I write all my names only on all the anniversary cards of every employee, all 4,000 every year. They asked me, why do you not just stamp these? This is a waste of your time. I said, no, my signature is telling you I care. I spent hours signing all 4,000, and I do it every year. I write hand notes to all of my principals on their birthday, every time, every year. Always have. Why? It's important. I see these things that I've signed on teachers' walls, on their refrigerators, on their cabinets, because it's important. The boss knew what I was doing was good. He appreciated it. They keep that stuff. It happened to me as a kid, and me as a worker, as a teacher. When my principal noticed, I never forgot that, and so that's how I shaped my leadership as well.
So, superintendent is not a desk job for you.
It is not. And actually, the inspiration comes from my father, who was a custodian and a maintenance man at my school district back in Glen, Alaska. My mom was a bus driver. And so I knew all the classified folks. And it turns out they're actually the glue to your machine. They're the ones that stick around the longest. And so if you can connect with all your classified, which I have 2,400 of those, if I can connect with those folks and tell them, hey, great job, keep up the great work, that spreads in your machine.
You're 20 years in and you're still very passionate about this.
Yeah, I'm getting old.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. No, and I think that's the secret. You have to, if you don't have fun and you don't know why you are there, I use this, I teach classes to future superintendents. And I meet with them and meet in groups with superintendents. Most of them are newbies. And I tell them, if you're working for diaper money, you're in trouble because you can't say no because you're worried that your school board's going to fire you. And I call it leading with your keys. You need to have your keys on your desk at all times. That if your board doesn't like what you're doing, you don't want to be there, nor should you change you to meet their needs. They hired you in theory for what you believe in and what you can get accomplished. And so if you can't lead with your keys, and if you're worried about your next paycheck, you can't be an effective leader. And you shouldn't go be a superintendent until that day comes when you can. Because if you're worried about, uprooting my kids, I had 2 kids, and I talked to my wife a long time ago. Here's the deal. We may have to move a lot because I'm not changing. This is what we're good at. This is what I can sell. This is why I can motivate people, but it may come at a price. And usually it did. I think I moved 7 times in my career, from Alaska to Michigan to Arizona, and actually those big moves. I think we're living in our 24th home, for example. That's what she was signing up for, 33 years ago we've been married. And so she knew that, and she's like, let's do it. She's a teacher as well. And so now she's a super sub for me. Helps out.
Well, there can be such burnout, and public education can be such an uphill climb sometimes. How do you keep people inspired?
Well, I'm a man of faith, so everything comes from in here. And I tell all leaders, if you don't believe what's in here, you will never be effective out here, period. So you have to start with yourself, taking good care of yourself, eating right, having some kind of hobby to keep you, sane. Because a superintendent's job is highly volatile. So if you don't have your core values in here that you will fight for and never change, you won't be an effective superintendent. So once you have that, then you can do anything, because then you're just basically living your life as you are on the inside with what you do. What you value comes out.
What initiatives that you've launched or accomplishments that you've had as superintendent are you the most proud of?
Again, it's all people. I would say the people stuff. anytime there's a problem in our machine, I try to get the smart people together. They're my cabinet. They're some of the smartest people in the state, I think. And so I'll give you a good example. Teachers and the lack of teachers coming into the pipeline. The universities are not cranking them out. So we got our scratchers together. So what if we built our own, had our own teacher academy? So we applied to the state. State said, sure, we'll let you try it. So what we do is we have a program. You could work for me, by the way. If you have a bachelor's in anything, forestry, TV, if you have a bachelor's, I will put you in a classroom Monday. And then for 2 years, you're going to go through an academy. We're going to teach you the educational side of it, the Deer Valley way. And so we have 90 people that are in this program today. My own people teach it, so they're getting the right philosophy of what we believe in, how to teach, classroom management, curriculum, alignment, standards, how to break them down. We teach that to those staff members, and it's wildly successful. Now other districts are duplicating it, and that's one I'm really proud of, because that was a problem that wasn't going away, and the solution was not outside. The solution was inside.
Well, it is definitely fun to have a conversation with Curtis. Dr. Finch, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your obvious passion for the job.
Thanks
Thank
again
you
for the
for being
opportunity.